morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you. Welcome to the last edition of the week of the full 100 TFH, and this is where the truth's told. Today is Friday the 5th of June, and we're exploring my third proposed law, which is give the public the right to intervene and stop rogue officers in the act. Give the public the right to intervene to stop a rogue officer in the act. But before we get to that, I'm gonna bring you up to speed with progression on basically what's going on around this Floyd George situation and the fight for fairness and parity of the races. And guys, I saw it at the beginning of the week. If you remember my first video of the week on Monday, I was gonna get back to the COVID-19 situation. However, when I smelt the mood over the weekend and I saw things were turning and I saw the corporate world coming into the game on Monday, I said, you know what, something is definitely going on. And guys, something is definitely changing. All right, so guys, without further ado, let's get to it. Right, so I'm going to start like I'm doing now by bringing you guys up to speed with where things are. So I'm going to start with the arrests. There's two separate situations. If you recall the Mr. Arbery murder by the father and son, they've been arraigned in court. So I'm going to bring you guys update on that. There's some disturbing situation with that as well. Then I'm going to bring you guys the update on the Floyd case as well. So guys, take a look at these two videos.
I understand. It was a hearing that sounded like a trial. Georgia prosecutors summed up their case against three white men accused of killing a 25-year-old black man running through their neighborhood.
On February the 23rd of 2020, victim Ahmaud Arbery was chased, hunted down, and ultimately executed at the hands of these men.
The three defendants, Gregory McMichael and his son Travis, and William Roddy Bryan Jr., appeared via video link from the county jail. The McMichaels initially told authorities they thought Arbery was a burglary suspect. The prosecution says Arbery had done nothing wrong.
The fact of the matter is that there's no evidence that these defendants saw a burglary, saw any crime, had any subjective belief or even a hunch by these civilians that would authorize their choices that they made to chase after and ultimately gun down this unarmed victim in the middle of the street.
In fact, Arbery was out jogging the day he died. Friends say it's what he loved to do. Prosecutors detailed the events leading up to Arbery's death, saying all three men, using two pickup trucks, became a neighborhood hunting party, blocking and redirecting Arbery as he tried to flee. Before they finally cornered him, one of the suspects captured Arbery's final moments on cell phone video. On the witness stand, the lead investigator in the case said 34-year-old Travis McMichael admitted to the first officers on the scene he deliberately shot Arbery 3 times with a shotgun. Then Agent Richard Dial shocked the courtroom, recounting what alleged co-conspirator William Bryan says Travis McMichael said next.
Mr. Bryan said that after the shooting took place, before police arrival, while Mr. Arbery was on the ground, that he heard Travis McMichael make the statement.
Defense attorneys for Travis McMichael maintain he never said that racial slur and
said goodbye to George Floyd. 3 former Minneapolis police officers charged in his death appeared in court, pointing a finger at the fourth. Thomas Lane, Tu Tao, and Alexander King already mounting a vigorous defense, illustrating in part why the AG, the Attorney General in the state, has said these cases are hard. Lawyers for the 3 officers seem to place the blame directly on Derek Chauvin, the senior officer who pressed his knee on Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes and tried to highlight their relative lack of experience.
Now, we have learned it was only Lane's 4th day on the force. He says he tried to give Floyd CPR on the way to the hospital. It was only King's 3rd full shift, and Chauvin was his training officer. Those details emerging just
Welcome back. I don't know about you guys, but the most shocking thing that I found shocking and really hurtful in the Arbery case was that after he was killed, after he was shot and dying on the floor, probably just about to take his last few breaths on this earth. The person who recorded that video, and actually the reason this video came to light is because he showed that video for their defense. That video was supposed to be in their screwed mind. That video was actually supposed to clear them. We never would have seen that video if he for 1 minute was smart enough to recognize that the video was actually incriminating them. Ain't that a turnout for the books? But more than anything else, that same guy who recorded the video, who was in the second car, said, F the nigger. As Mr. Arbery was on the ground dying, he turns around and said, F the N-word. Guys, I'm glad that we are now addressing this situation, because this is totally unacceptable. What makes this case even more tragic is that those words he used can't be used against him in the state of Georgia. Do you know that? The state of Georgia has no anti-racist laws. You cannot be done for being racist to somebody. You cannot be done by telling someone you're black, get out of my premises. You cannot be done by refusing someone work and blatantly telling them, I'm not going to give you this job because you're black. No charges, nothing. These are the things we're trying to change our people. So let's move on. Let's move on. Now, I told you guys about the energy that's changing. So I'm going to bring you guys a couple of more proof, just so those of you who still think, it's just the same thing again, it's just the same thing again. Some of you, I feel your sentiment, you know, I do. Because I haven't been on every single march myself. I haven't been out protesting every single time. To be honest, I haven't protested for probably close to 20 years or more. The last time I probably protested was outside of my local police station, Tottenham Police Station, when they killed somebody in the early 90s, mid 90s times. That's the last time I protested. So I get your point. However, you must be informed enough to recognize a situation when you see it. And if you're not that informed to recognize it, look around you. When you see lots of white people that this isn't their issue, talking about it, I'm bringing you news of the corporate world are taking this on now. At the beginning of the week, I showed you a couple of corporate companies taking this on. Now, have a look, okay, at these next set of videos, right? But before I go to that, there's one other thing I want to say, actually. Did you notice that the guys who killed George Floyd, did you notice that one of them, it was his first shift, and another one, it was his third shift? Their training officer was the killer. The person who had his knee on George Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes. That's their training officer. This is why my point yesterday is so important. The race offenders register. Now, this guy had 18 complaints against him, and yet he still had his job. Not just did he have his job, they deemed him fit to train new officers. Unbelievable, right? That to me is like an active sex offender being asked to be a probation monitor for a current sex offender who's just come out of court convicted. So you got someone who's had 18 convictions for sex offenses. And the system, the probation system, thinks he's the perfect guy to be the probation officer to newly convicted sex offenders coming through the courts. That's what this is. Now, if that sounds ridiculous to you, if you're not black, that's how this story sounds to us who are black. That you can take a perpetrator, someone with a known record of behaving that way, and deem this person fit to be the training officer to the two new officers. That's the world that we currently live in. Okay? So, as I was saying, I'm now going to move on to the next set of videos, which is showing you about how things are changing. Okay? So please take a look, guys.
Coming down down in Richmond, Virginia. Governor Ralph Northam announcing plans to remove a statue honoring General Robert E. Lee. He says the statue will be taken down as soon as possible and put in storage while they work to determine its future.
When a young child looks up and sees something that big and prominent, she knows that it must be important. And when it's the biggest thing around, it sends a clear message. This is what we value the most.
Most big companies have shied away from taking sides in public debates, but the death of George Floyd is changing all of that with varying degrees of success. Here's our Abby Phillip.
It started as a trickle, Silicon Valley companies like Salesforce and Apple speaking out days after the killing of George Floyd, but now it has become an avalanche as corporate America breaks its silence on race amid nationwide protests. The leaders of America's most powerful businesses are facing pressure from their customers and employees to act.
I say to you today, no more. No more. Racism of any kind is divisive, it's ugly, and it brings about the worst of humanity.
Ben & Jerry's, the Vermont-based ice cream company that is no stranger to activism, offering one of the most strongly worded statements calling for concrete steps to dismantle white supremacy in all its forms.
In order for us to make the kind of progress that we need as a nation and as a society, it requires us to acknowledge and to embrace some hard truths.
Nike flipping its iconic slogan, "Just do it," on its head. Now pleading, for once, don't do it. Don't turn your back on racism. And 9 of Detroit's largest businesses, including General Motors CEO Mary Barra, now coming together to pledge that they will push for action.
We will stand up against injustice, and that means taking the risk of expressing unpopular or polarizing points of view, because complacency and complicity sit in the shadow of silence.
It's a dramatic change for predominantly white corporate America, but for some, the outpouring of support...
Back a stunning about-face at the New York Times overnight, hours after the paper's editorial page editor defended a controversial op-ed from Republican Senator Tom Cotton. The Times backed away from it. The Times now says a review made clear that a rushed editorial process led to the publication of an op-ed that did not meet our standards. Cotton's piece, arguing in no uncertain terms in favor of deploying the military to stop protests, triggered outrage among many Times staffers who said it contained misinformation and, quote, put Black Times staff in danger. Last night, officer now under investigation for shoving a kneeling black protester to the ground. We don't know everything that led up to that moment, but you can see his fellow officer, a black female officer, appears to reprimand him.
Wow. The Fort Lauderdale Police Department has confirmed Officer Steve Pohorence has been relieved of duty and placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. And then there's warning over incidents caught on video, much of it disturbing to watch. 2 Buffalo, New York police officers suspended after a viral video showed them shoving a 75-year-old man to the ground. You can see the man approaching officers, then he stumbles backward and hits his head on the ground after being pushed. Police originally said the man tripped. The mayor of Buffalo says that man is hospitalized in serious but stable condition. Governor Andrew Cuomo called the incident wholly unjustified and utterly disgraceful. The 2 officers have been suspended without pay.
Welcome back, guys. Right, so I'm now going to show you my last bits of updates, news, before we go on to today's topic. Today, this last bit is about the monkey in the White House. It's about the monkey in the White House. Yeah, he's losing support like mad. You know, he thought he would play this like how he plays everything else, to his base, to his 30% of racists, hardcore racists in America. He thought he would play that game with this. What he didn't expect was that he'd gone too far. He's gone way too far. The generals are coming against him. His own people are coming against him. An Alaska senator who's a Republican has now said, listen, I'm tired of not saying anything. I'm tired of not saying anything. I back what General Mattis said, Mad Dog Mattis said yesterday, right? And furthermore, as a Republican senator, I don't think I'm going to vote for Trump. So when she said that, I'm also now going to play you guys, as part of these videos, you're going to see what's going on with just the ordinary white people and how they're feeling about this. You're going to see a video from the senator and the generals. And then you're going to see the last video will be the video of Trump trying to defend himself. And he used his lawyer. Now, it's unheard of in politics, right? That imagine Boris Johnson is being attacked by his decision on COVID-19, for example, yeah? The public are saying stuff, the other side are saying stuff, and then some of his MPs are also saying stuff. Instead of doing a press conference or getting the White House press secretary to put out your statement, which is what all leaders do. Do you know what this guy done? He got his personal lawyer to put a statement out. A personal lawyer to put out a statement about government issue. Your personal lawyer puts out a statement if the secretary at work, if he's one of his secretaries like Bill Clinton, if one of his secretaries accused him of sexual something or whatever, then use your personal lawyer to make, because you're defending yourself in something that was put to about your personal activity on someone else. Not government stuff do you put out your own personal. When this guy is a monkey on all levels, people. Take a look at these videos.
Especially since I'm from the suburbs, this has raised a whole new movement talking about Black Lives Matter and how we really need to come together and address this issue.
Allen said he was stunned by Trump's photo op outside of a church Monday.
That is what happens in authoritarian regimes. That is what happens in illiberal regimes. It doesn't happen in the United States, and we shouldn't tolerate it.
The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mike Mullen, said he was sickened to see those protesters cleared out of the way and couldn't stay silent any longer. Even the president's former chief of staff, John Kelly, is pushing back on him today, disputing his claim that he fired Mattis. He did not ask for his resignation. The president has clearly forgotten how it actually happened or is confused.
Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska saying today that President Trump's behavior in the last few days is making it difficult for her to consider voting for his re-election in November. Murkowski, along with Senator Mitt Romney, praising former Trump Defense Secretary James Mattis after Mattis's comments assailing his former boss, Donald Trump, for dividing Americans. Mattis is just one of a number of top retired military leaders criticizing the commander-in-chief. Others include former Joint Chiefs Chair Admiral Mike Mullen and former Afghanistan Commander General John Allen. If Mr. Trump seems figuratively walled in at the White House amid all this criticism from former Pentagon leaders, he's also being literally walled in as more fences and barricades are being raised surrounding 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. As CNN's Trump,
and the president went ballistic. He says he's going to go to Alaska to campaign against Lisa Murkowski, no matter who is running against her. As long as the person has a pulse, that's an actual quote from President Trump, he will support whoever is campaigning against Lisa Murkowski. I'm not sure this is a good strategy for Republicans holding the Senate long-term, Bakari.
The president had his lawyer, John Dowd, write a letter, I guess, meant for Mattis, but the writing is akin to a science fiction novel. And so I just want to read this. This is the letter in response to Mattis. The phony protesters near Lafayette Park were not peaceful and are not real. They are terrorists using idle, hate-filled students to burn and destroy. They were abusing and disrespecting the police when the police were preparing the area for the curfew. We have the video, Abby. We have the video.
Welcome back, guys. Okay, so we're going to go on to the real topic of today's show, which is my third law, breaking down the law about giving the public the right to intervene. Why am I calling on this law? This law is important because I'm tired of seeing many a video including from here, over here as well. The video the other day of the black dad being tased in front of his little girl had people in the petrol station that were saying, what are you doing? Leave him alone. We're tired of seeing videos where people can see you're killing somebody and they can't get involved. Now, why can the public apprehend me when I'm doing something wrong in public? The public have the right to apprehend me. The public has the right to apprehend anybody other than police officers doing wrong. If we saw firemen attacking someone unnecessarily, we can apprehend that guy. If we saw a soldier doing that, we can apprehend that soldier. The police seem to be the only people that are legally allowed to kill black people in front of anybody. They see themselves being filmed and they think, I'm going to get on with what I'm doing. You know why? Because they know the public can't do nothing. They know the public cannot stop them. And they also know the chances of being charged are about 3%. The chances of the charge sticking are about 1%. The charges of conviction are near enough 0.2%, less than 1% chance of conviction. Now, if I had those odds in my favor, I'll be going to Boris Johnson's house right now and demanding answers from him for many things he's said and done in the past. If I had that protection around me right now, I'll be going to people that have been ripping, for example, the people that run the lottery, that have been ripping us all off. I'll be at their offices demanding money back for people. But I can't do that because there's repercussions for that. This law makes the next Officer Chauvin, the guy who killed George Floyd, will make it, next time they start doing that, and even one member of the public says, what are you doing? You're killing him. What are you doing? You got him in the head hole. What are you doing? You're choking him. That will get them to stop. Because the public can then say, listen, if you don't stop, we have the right to detain you because you're committing a crime. That's a crime. It's a crime. People need the power to stop it when it's going on. Because clearly, this guy was doing it. You heard on the video, the one, well, maybe, I don't think that featured on the video actually, but two of them, one who's just started 3 days ago, I think he was the sort of blackish one. And that's another thing that's sad, that a white officer is so confident that he can actually have in the group of people he's training, there can be two people where of color, if you like. There was a Japanese looking sort of guy or Hawaiian looking guy, and there was a mixed race looking guy, or he might be Hispanic. But either way, he had the right and he believed he could, which is why even though he had people of color training, he still felt confident enough to say, on your first day on the job, son, I'm going to show you how we kill black men on the street. And knew that he'd get away with it. Thank God for the video recorder. Thank God for mobile phones today. So I'm going to go back and to where I was, right? Within this law, yeah? This law must be set in a way or phrased in a way that any officers present at any one of these situations is automatically as guilty as the officer who carried out, or officers who carried out the offense. Okay? Because look, for many, at least, when did the joint enterprise law come in? I would guess late 90s, maybe early 2000s. So it's been about 20 years or just less, maybe a little less, 15, 20 years. I might be off a little bit here or there, yeah? But we've seen the government, when he got tired of stabbings, and I support them to a certain extent, but again, if that law was used fairly, I would have supported it. But that law was never used fairly. And they didn't start looking at it until white boys started to get caught up in it. And white mums were going up to the Prime Minister and going on the newspapers and TV stations and wherever else saying, my son, my handsome son did not do this. He was just with them. And then they said, all right, many white guys are getting caught up in this now. Let's take a look at it. When it was just black kids getting caught up, and he was like, yes, that's it. That's what they need. So now we need the same for the police. We need the same for the police. We need every police officer who's present and does nothing to stop it to be as guilty, no doubt, as guilty as the officer who carried out the crime. We have had to deal with that for years and years and years and years and years. You thought that law was correct for the normal citizen? Then why is it not correct for the police officer who abused their rights? Okay, so that's another stipulation in the law. Now, you guys have protected police officers for way too long, okay? And it's time to stop now. There is one other aspect of the law that definitely has to be included. But just to further ram home my point, right, about these guys are still using these methods. They are still at it, even as this is going on. This tells you that we need shock treatment. If a police officer can be hearing this news, can see his colleagues, like the video I showed you. You see the lady officer, the black officer, when the white officer dragged the girl, the black officer stepped up. Because that's the mood of the time. So when the majority are now starting to see what black people have been talking about for centuries, you still have officers behaving like this. Take a look.
International Lead with a brighter spotlight on racial injustice and police violence this day. We are learning about more incidents around the country. In Vallejo, California, Sean Monterosa was shot dead by a police officer while kneeling after being suspected of looting. Police say an officer mistook his hammer for a gun. And in Tacoma, Washington, a medical examiner has just ruled that police committed a homicide when in March, police restrained Manuel Ellis after detaining him. Audio reveals that Ellis said the now all too familiar words, "I can't breathe," before taking his last breath. CNN's Ryan Young now looks at the problems that remain in police forces across the country and some of the lives lost at the hands of police officers.
Police tactics across the country are now under a microscope.
Hey, you got your knee on my man's neck, man. On his neck, bro.
This video from Sarasota, Florida shows the moment officers attempted to arrest a man during a domestic disturbance call.
I got you on his neck, man.
One of the officers is seen kneeling on the back of the man's neck just days before George Floyd's death. One of the officers said in the incident report that the defendant tried to get away and that police used minor force. Kneeling on someone's neck, Sarasota police say, is not something they train their officers to do. The department has now launched an internal investigation.
Sandra Bland. Sandra Bland. Chantel Davis.
It's one of the several recent incidents protesters say highlight a pattern of troubling police techniques. Another example, police in Vallejo, California shot and killed 22-year-old Sean Monterosa while responding to a suspected looting call. Officers say he ran toward them while reaching for what appeared to be a gun, but later confirmed it was a hammer.
The district attorney is going to look at this, and our internal affairs unit is going to look at it.
As calls for justice spread on the streets, a similar investigation is now underway in Tacoma, Washington. In March, Manuel Ellis was heard saying, "I can't breathe." He died in police custody. And in Chicago, another investigation launched looking into the actions of these officers during an aggressive arrest last weekend. The family said they had done nothing wrong. Cook County says it's conducting a thorough independent investigation of the matter, including the conduct of the police officers involved.
12 or 14 cops that just started bamming on they just swarmed in and just started bamming at my windows, bamming at my car. They had their weapons drawn.
Cedric Alexander.
And training is so, is so important in our police organizations today. This technique is not being taught. It's just not acceptable.
Welcome back, guys. So, listen, these guys are using techniques, clearly, that they weren't trained to use. So I put it to you, Your Honor, that when I saw Officer Brown with his knee on the neck of the gentleman, the black gentleman on the pavement, knowing they're not trained to use that technique, Your Honor, I saw what he was doing as an illegal act. It was illegal on two fronts. One, you're killing somebody, and in the process of killing somebody, you're using an illegal method to do that. So, Your Honor, I chose to stop this officer in his tracks before someone else loses their lives. They're using illegal methods. For years, we didn't know this was illegal methods. We didn't know the police had that view whether this was legal or not legal, because they always just covered up for the officer. They never said anything to people. Now it's all coming out. Now police authorities are saying, no, we never taught them that system. But can I tell you something? As much as they never taught them that system, they're right. I believe them. You know why? Because white people never see that technique. They don't know that technique exists. But us black people, we know that those techniques are out there. So I believe that they weren't trained to do that. However, once they're unleashed onto the public, they inherit a training officer like Officer Chauvin. And then the rest is history. Because then he teaches them new techniques on how to kill black people. So if me, a member of the public, can be stopped doing something wrong, then I put it to you, my people, that so should a police officer be stopped. And one main addition to this law, knowing how the police are dangerous and evil and sadistic, because we've seen it time and time again. Even the George Floyd situation, the police officer was gonna tase people that will tase. What you do? As soon as he finished and he was satisfied the guy was dead, then he turned his focus on the public and took out his taser. Can you believe that? What other type of a human being will have just killed somebody and have the audacity to take out a weapon and threaten those who are crying for the people he just killed, who are crying and begging for the life of the person he just killed? He had the audacity to threaten them. So my people, this is what needs to be included in that law, in this law. Included in this law, there has to be a public protection clause. There has to be a public protection clause. We have to give the right to the public and make the officers understand. So when these situations are actually happening at the time, they can't be taking out lasers or guns in America. Tasers here, my people. Tasers here or tasers in America. They shouldn't be taking those out and threatening people. They should remember that the public have been empowered to approach them. Does that make sense? It's the only way the law works. Otherwise, you still have officers like that Chauvin guy who will still be threatening people. Because he is the officer of the law. He has a higher status than you. However, at the time he's committing the crime, this law has to make him become a common criminal at that moment. And when he's done, he can be a police officer again. That's if he hasn't done anything wrong, by the way. But you know what I mean. Within that moment, when the crowd's gathering and they're watching something like this going on, the law needs to empower them to be on the same level as a police officer. So the police officer looks at them as temporary police officers for that minute. The same way one police officer will look at his colleague as another police officer. He knows, yeah, we both got the same protection, mate. Cool. For that split 5 minutes, 10 minutes, in the case of Mr. Floyd, 8 minutes, 40 something seconds. For that moment, the public must have the same status as a police officer. That's my law. And that will save many a life. So all of these laws have to have teeth. So without that clause, the law has no teeth, because you'll get your ordinary citizens still. This is something we all grew up with. We're not used to just getting up to a police officer and pulling him off somebody. We're not used to doing that. So the law needs to encourage us to do that. By encouraging us to do that, the law needs to give us that status that for that split 4 or 5 minutes that an incident's going on, you have the authority of a police officer to hold, detain, and arrest until good cops arrive on the scene. Guys, this is serious, and these are the laws that we need to have. So far this week, guys, I've brought you guys putting the onus, so putting the burden of proof on the officer if a case occurs and it's now in court. He needs to prove to us that he dotted all his I's and crossed all his T's. The second one is to set up a race offenders register. That race offenders register, no matter how trivial your race crime is, you go into that, because the sex offenders register does not care if you're a peeping Tom or if you're a flasher or if you're a rapist. Right? It doesn't, does it? If you flash out a woman, you go into that, because the next week you might turn from a flasher to a stalker, and then from a stalker to a rapist, and then from a rapist to a murderer. And that's why it doesn't matter how petty your sex crime is, you are in the register. The same needs to apply to the race offenders register. And now today, the third of it is to give the public the power to detain or stop or intervene if they see something like the Floyd situation happening again. Okay, so guys, I'm going to come to my last series of videos now, and these are basically heartwarming side to it. I hope I've explained that law like I've done with each of my videos over the course of the week. On Monday, I'm going to be speaking to you guys about the fourth of them, and the fourth of them involves jurors and how police officers are tried. Okay, as I said to you guys in the initial video, I've got 4 laws that I believe, if implemented today, the life of a black man is different the very next day. And then there are 2 additional laws that we have to build the portfolio of jurors. We have to build a portfolio of judges. But those will come on Tuesday and Wednesday, because on Monday, I'm going to be doing the 4th one of my immediate laws, okay? And again, like I said, that will involve jurors, and I'll speak to you guys about it on Monday. Now, before I show this series of videos, I want to speak directly to my black community. One of the videos I'm going to show in this last segment is of a 75-year-old gentleman who was brutalized by the police. I mean, when you watch this video, it's bad. He's a 75-year-old white man who was out protesting for us, black people. And the police pushed, 2 police officers pushed a 79 or 74-year-old man. 2 police officers pushed him. When you see the video, you see the pool of blood. When he's lying on the pavement, knocked out, you see his arms drop down where he's gone unconscious. But if you look at the pavement where he's lying, where his head's laid, you see the pool of blood expanding as he was bleeding. This guy risked his life for us, black people. Now, I understand that for years, it's now in your DNAs that you don't pay attention to the news. Change can happen. It's possible to change if only you tried. This isn't one of those situations like the rest. I will go and march. I've got many years and not march, but this is our last opportunity to make something different. So I'm asking all my black people, get yourselves out doing something. Whether it's cook some food, wrap them in little bundles, go to where there are marches, give it out. That's something. You're keeping up the spirits of those who are fighting. If you see someone put a petition on social media, don't ignore it like you've been doing, because I'm not in politics, so I'm not going to look. Stop it. Stop making other races fight for us. It's time every one of us is counted this time round. You saw the corporate companies. They're changing. You saw the white girl speak. For the first time, her and her friends like saying, you know what? They're changing. You see the police officers taking the knee. You see the police officers reprimanding their friends. They're changing. Why are they changing? Because this is different. This smells and feels different. So what I say to you guys, who always say the same thing, is bloody change and do something on this one. We need every single boot on the ground. We need every single voice. We need every single signature. We need every single like, every single subscription. When you see people doing stuff and you're ignoring to subscribe, you're a mug. Because they're doing something for you. They're helping. And if you're not doing nothing, you should be ashamed of yourself. If you're doing something already, fine. I respect you anyway for that. Stop ignoring shit. This is the one. This is the one. Wake up tomorrow and say to yourself, this is the one. So guys, I'm going to go to my last series of videos, okay? Take a look at this poor man, and just so you know, the feedback is he's stable in hospital. So thank God he didn't lose his life, and he was critical, but this afternoon I saw he's stable. So let's keep our fingers crossed for this decent person who left his house to fight for us, right? Why you lot sit at home and do shit? Take a look at these videos.
A hopeful note to cap off what has been a very, very long week. A Minneapolis school asked people to donate after the neighborhood stores closed their doors, and boy, did people respond. Cars lining up for miles in Minneapolis to donate food. The students were hoping to receive 85 kits containing cereal, bread, apples, diapers, and detergent. Well, they wound up with 30,000 and were able to serve more than 500 families. You know, it's so important to remember, Christine, we are still in the middle of a pandemic here, and food insecurity is real.
It certainly is. I think what we've seen around the country are so many people with good hearts, you know, who want to do something for their communities.
They are sad and upset, and they have every right to be, Elmo. People are upset because racism is a huge problem in our country.
Racism? What's that?
Oh, racism is when people treat other people unfairly because of the way they look or the color of their skin.
The color of their skin? Oh, Elmo doesn't understand, Daddy. Elmo has friends with different types of skin. Oh, and fur, too. Black, brown, pink, purple.
I know, Elmo, but not all streets are like Sesame Street.
Welcome back. I'm going to say my goodbye now. Have a fantastic weekend, guys. People are taking this as the only white, fair-minded people are looking at this like, yeah, I'm tired of these people, man, suffering. Let me do my bit so we're even. So no, we don't keep hearing these things. So the world is a fair place. That's why people are coming out and they're helping in every which way. Those people you saw in that queue, if all they did through this whole fight was just that, I still thank them. And if you're black and you're not doing jack, you should be ashamed of yourself. I'll see you guys there on Monday. Have a fantastic weekend. God bless. Bye-bye.